So Travis, I'm so happy you were able to join us today.
Happy to be back, Harry. After 7 times, I can't believe they still keep coming back.
Yeah. Well, you've got a good message and people like hearing it. So with that, I am going to turn this over to you. So I'm going to make you the presenter.
Okay, show my screen. All right, now I'm going to try and minimize the GoToWebinar without ejecting myself from the meeting here real quick. Okay. That's good. You should be seeing my screen now.
I am.
All right, excellent. Well, guys, again, thanks for having me. We're going to talk about some different things tonight than I have done in the past. We've got some quick Photoshop things I want to show you that we won't spend a ton of time on, but they're just little things that you can do to improve your look or your style. I mean, the more and more every day I'm trying to teach myself to spend less time playing in Photoshop, even though I really, really like it. So we're all about like getting it done quick and yet in a way that looks different than everyone else. So tonight we're going to talk about some ways to add flair to your photography and your marketing and your brand, and at the same time some habits that photographers tend to have that we're going to try and analyze and maybe get rid of. So as Carrie was saying, my history in the industry, if you don't know and haven't seen me speak before, is convoluted to the point where when people ask me what I do, it's just like, I'm a photographer. Basically, the short version is we owned a studio for about 10 years back in the my wife and I were a team, and the family sort of came first. So we sold the studio and started Silver Lake. It became a brand all of its own. Before we knew it, we were selling in countries all over the world. And just this last January, we took over the go-to senior studio in our town. So we've kind of come full circle, and the interesting thing is that I don't know anyone in the industry that's quite in my position. Like Carrie said, as a studio that was in existence for a long time in the film era, we know how things should be done. We've got a lot of experience with that. As a vendor, we talk to a lot of photographers that are just getting started and the hurdles and the problems that they're having. And now at the studio we picked up had so much going right for it, but it was the stereotypical studio that starts in the home, not really sure how to do things and kind of finds their own way. So we've actually firsthand experienced the growing pains of the new digital photographer and the things that they sort of do naturally and have to overcome. So my experience is, like, say, partially firsthand, partially from talking to other people, but I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp of what's going on in the industry. And as we go through the program, the hardest thing in the world to do these days is structure a program that has something for everybody, the experienced professional and the person that's just starting out. So I put a lot of time and attention into that, and I'll bounce around from the experienced pro to the newer photographer. So if you happen to hear something that's like, this doesn't really apply to me, give me 5 minutes. Like the weather in Idaho, it will change. So without further ado, what we're going to talk about tonight, if you are not one of a kind, or if you are one of a kind, clients can either afford you or they can't, but they can't go someplace else and get it for less. So it's something everyone has to really seriously look at. Can you go down the street and get what I do for $100 on a disc? If that's the case, it's time for some serious self-examination, and what do I need to do to stand out and be an original? Now, I can confidently say in our situation, nobody in town can go somewhere else and get what we do. They can go get photography, they can go get portraits, but they can't get what we do for less. And that's a nice place to be able to say, look, yeah, you can go down the street, you can hire somebody else, but you will not get me for those prices. In fact, that's kind of a joke is people say, well, how come these guys are so much cheaper? Well, their prices don't include us. So it's an easy answer. if you're not completely unique at this point, what's stopping you from becoming that? I mean, you're going to see that I always have been a high school senior photographer, but a lot of what I talk about can apply to anything else. I mean, I guarantee you if I was a newborn photographer or a maternity photographer, I would be doing it totally different than everyone else is. You're not going to see the same type of work done almost as good for me, because that doesn't support the way I believe. The first thing I want to show you guys is the Photoshop templates that we were talking about. For many years with Silver Lake, people had asked us, can we get these in a digital format? And we'd resisted for a long time, but just as of a few months ago, we released a digital line of the Silver Lake products. Now, there's a number of things you can do. Printing technologies have gotten better. The printing costs have come down. They become more accessible to the general consumer. So these backdrops are full-on, high-res. They'll print up to 10 foot wide. And if you know or have a company you work with that prints on vinyl or polycloth or anything you'd like, you can download these designs and use them for that. We have people that are using them for digital backdrops, so compositing people in. We use them a lot for design elements in different albums or textures or things like that. You'll see that the advantage of something like this, where it's not just a texture you found at Shutterstock or whatnot, but somebody that actually designs backdrops, is we've already put the graphic elements in this to make this unique and individualized, particularly for high school seniors. But as well, we are painters at nature. I mean, a lot of what you see in our backdrop designs, and you notice it's different than other people's, it's because most of it is physically painted at some point or another and then digitized after that. So, I mean, no matter how good Photoshop or Corel seems to get, there are certain depths and textures and things you just can't repeat digitally. So you'll see in some of these designs that these textures and these painted looks help bring things to a more artistic level. So here's a couple of quick examples. We've got just a straight up shot on the left, and on the right this is our shiny backdrop, which is kind of a bokeh looking backdrop with a really warm color and texture. And by simple overlay, and we'll show you how this is done really quick and easy, but by a simple overlay, it kind of adds artificial bokeh to a backlit scene, and it warms up the colors and adds a little bit of contrast. The bottom shot, same kind of thing. I believe the blend mode on that one was, I want to say overlay. But yeah, the colors come out, punches it up. It's got a little bit of grit and grunge and texture. Now, this is a good friend of mine, Dan Rowe. He's emailed me just coincidentally a couple of days ago. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm loving these new digital backdrops. He's just throwing them into his composite work. You can see this is the Apollo that's showing on a somewhat opaque layer, or a somewhat transparent layer over a basketball gym and so on. It's got a little bit of graphic element and a little bit of artistic feel to it. Here's another one he did real quick. I believe this is the Collide backdrop, but you've got those real painterly strokes I was talking about kind of mixed in with everything else. So let me do this. Let me try and open up Photoshop here without breaking anything, and we'll just go through how this is done really quick. Right here. It's a simple process. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with layer masks and blend modes, you need to really learn those. You need to search those terms out and learn how to use them, because they're the most, in my opinion, the most powerful tool in Photoshop for giving an interesting, unique look. So this is, for instance, just a kind of fairly straight up senior portrait, a little bit backlit, and let's try and just grab one of these elements. We'll go with Bastille. It's kind of a crackly type of look, and it gives you kind of almost like the old masters paintings that have weathered this test of time. So simply, we're going to drag this over the top of the image, And initially when it comes going to be big, like say these files are huge. The long sides are like, oh, I want to say 7,000 pixels or 10,000 pixels, something along those lines. So we're going to have to transform it a little smaller. Alrighty. And just pick a spot that looks good. Okay, so now we're going to set our blend mode. There's a few that I tend to use more than others, but generally you're going to find me, at least in the overlay, soft light, or hard light mode. So there's overlay. That comes in sometimes a little strong. Soft light tends to be less. And simply, I mean, you've got this crackly texture, everything looks kind of cool. Maybe we don't want it on our skin as much. And that's a simple matter of just coming in here, starting a layer, or putting a mask on our layer, going to a smaller brush, and just brushing the crackly texture off of her a little bit and let her features stand out. And it's really that simple. Like I say, you can play around with different blend modes that suit you. I mean, sometimes multiply can be cool. For this, when you've got darks and lights in the same scene, sometimes that gets a little problematic. Vivid light is usually too rough for me. Hard light is good. And you can also adjust the opacity of this. You know, you like the effect, but not so strong. Let's just back it off to where it's very, very light. Something along those lines. So, and here's a trick. If you guys haven't seen this software, I use it all the time. I love this software. It's called a, what is it called? Totally Rad is the company, and it's called Dirty Pictures. Now, with these guys, it's things that you can do, but basically what this program does is takes the texture, puts it over your image, lets you choose the blend mode, and then puts another layer on top that's blurred out completely. So then it installs the masks and everything already for you, but when you brush away that texture, it keeps the coloring. So if you've ever run into that before where you're like, oh, I want this texture off the subject, but when you do that, there's a really strange color temperature on your subject versus your background. This prevents all of that. And like I say, you can do it yourself by doing that same thing, putting another layer of that texture, big time Gaussian blur, and then masking it off of her. For the $100 that these guys charge, and they don't pay me anything to say this, but it's just worth it to me to have them do it. So it comes with some textures already, but you can put your own texture folders in there. Same thing, we go to Bastille, we choose that as a texture, hit OK. It loads it in at hard light at 50, but you can change your blend modes there if you want. You can change your opacity if you want. Once you hit OK, you'll see what happens to the layer structure. See, we've got the normal layer here and the very, very blurred layer that's got a mask already applied to it and the brush is set and ready to go. So literally, then you can take it off your subject and you keep the color toning of that texture without the texture being there, if that makes sense. All right, so that's a quick one. Let's try something else. Here's one I was playing with a little bit earlier today. This is one of my favorite people in the world, Xantha. We'll grab a different texture here. Let's go with, we'll try that Totally Rad again. We'll choose Pewter, which is kind of one of our backdrops that's a watery type of look with warm and cool colors on there. Okay. When this first comes in, if we don't like the angle that this comes in at, you can literally hit auto rotate, rotate it around until it becomes a more pleasing direction for you. I don't know, maybe something like that. Now this looks pretty terrible right now, but if we were to go, let's ramp this up just a little bit, intensifies the colors, let that go okay. And let's get rid of it on our subject. Just a little bit. Okay. like I say, it blends kind of well with the background and has something people just look at and go, oh, I'm not really quite sure what that is, but it's kind of cool. If you're not crazy about that blend mode, you can go soft light to less, a lot, so I thought I would just address it. Try overlays a little crisp. This webinar, people have asked me, I've done these flower shoots for a while now, and people always said, well, have you experimented with the holy powder or the colored powder? And I haven't, because I prefer to stick with white, and I can go whatever color. This fool right here. To get this, I had it set up so this was a workshop we did up in Canada, but I had somebody else pushing the trigger on the camera for me, but I was firing the strobe, so I knew where my timing would be, and I had to be back there to kind of throw this big powder, so it wasn't just what was. So anyway, as we do this with flour, we do this with water. We do it with quite a few different things to give sort of a different look. That's pretty simple to do. Simply, we're going to add a new layer, and you could literally start painting with colors, but let's just add a few colors in here. Okay. So it kind of looks like something you might do in kindergarten, but once you change this blend mode to color, it starts to pop, and it starts to look like maybe if you this fools people quite often. I get people like, how did you get that? You can certainly do it with gels, but gels are unpredictable. It's just one more element that can go wrong. If you want to start kind of really messing around with this is easy and always interesting. You can add a new layer and go to a gradient. And I don't have any good, like really good gradients on this laptop, but let's see here. Grab you a gradient that's at least mildly interesting. Okay, we'll try that one. Put it in, I don't know, whatever that mode's called. And just run it across here. Okay, again, horrible, not good. But let's bring it to color mode. And all of a sudden, this might be potential, it might be potential to work here. Let's put a layer mask on it. Go to our brush tool, and we'll start brushing it off of areas that we don't want it on. I hope that everybody kind of followed where we were going here with the gradient overlays over the color. And then we're simply going to kind of mask them off the areas that we don't want them on, or that wouldn't be like believable for them to be on. So maybe down light as it travels gets less and less intense, and we may knock the opacity down on this, but all of a sudden it starts to look like this could potentially be stage lighting, or something. Musicians often tend to work in environments where there's different types of can lights or colored lighting. If you're not crazy about this way this looks, you can always transform it, change it to be larger or at a different angle or come in from the other direction or whatever is sort of pleasing you artistically at the time. And then, of course, once you transform this, you got to tweak your mask a little bit, but I think you get the general process. I mean, we put it off of him, put the colors back on where we want it, and so on and so forth. And you'll find different colors react differently, also depending on what what's underneath, whether it's water or flour or so on and so forth. So, I mean, that's how we do the colored flour, the colored smoke, or the colored water. And it resonates with our clients. I mean, people dig it, and they don't quite know what it is, but they want it and they like it. All right, so from here on out, we're going to talk about some bad habits that photographers have. And like I say, some of these are bad habits that we've had to deal with. Some of them are bad habits that I hear other photographers talk about. Because of our position in the industry, I have a lot of friends, like Facebook friends that are photographers, so my news feed has everything from the amazing to the insane that comes across the daily. So I see a lot of different things that I kind of make mental notes of to kind of, try and include in the next program, talk to people about. So let's talk about improving your quality, right? Somebody once told me, if you want to charge more for your images, you need to take better images. And that was early in my progression, but it's absolutely true. You're going to have a tough time getting top dollar for your work if your work isn't worth top dollar. So in order to do that, there's a number of things. Whether you're an experienced pro or an amateur, surround yourself with positive people that scare you. Okay? That sounds interesting, but it came from my experiences with After Dark. After Dark was one of the more intimidating things I'd ever done before, as far as mentoring alongside some of the greatest photographers in this industry. It scares you. I mean, these guys, you think you're doing okay, you turn around, these guys are just knocking one out of the park. So I've actually created that environment for myself after realizing how beneficial it was for me. The studio that we took over, the photographer that works here and had run it before that, is literally every day she's shooting stuff that I look over and I'm like, I suck at life. I need to get better. I need to shoot better. I need to connect better with my people. I mean, if that's not possible for you in a work environment, at least shoot with people that are better than you are, and you will find yourself rising to the challenge, I promise you. Now, if you've been shooting for a long time, I mean, I've been at all, you guys. When we sold our studio, we were shooting so much work. I mean, numbers you don't even hear about nowadays. 500 to 600 seniors a year, 50 some odd weddings a year. I mean, when we sold the studio, I literally sold every piece of gear that I owned, and if I never picked up another camera again, I would have been happy. You have to experience that level of burnout in order to relate to it, but if you've been shooting a long time, I highly encourage you to hang around somebody that's completely self-taught and isn't boxed in by the print, PPA print rules and, such and such quality. They see life in a completely different way, and they will open your mind to things that you thought were impossible, or you thought were, I can't do that because that's against the rules, or that won't score well, or whatever the case may be. If you're new a photographer, find a mentor and attend a workshop. Now, I have people tell me all the time, I hear this a lot, oh, it's, you've helped me so much, I can't find help in my local area. That's going to be the case, guys. I mean, you're going to, because any successful studio or established studios gets people on a weekly basis saying, gee, would you teach me this? Would you show me that? The fact of the matter is, if you walked up to a restaurant and said, show me everything you do and all of your recipes, because I'm thinking if I set up down the street and did everything you did for a lower price, I'd be super busy. That's, maybe even if your intentions are really noble about asking local photographers for help, that's what they're hearing. Okay, so I'm supposed to show you everything I know, and you're going to charge less for it. So, I mean, coming from a guy who willingly shares with people all across the country, my local people, they need to go somewhere else to learn that stuff. I mean, we've got the World Wide Web. They can learn from people in Australia. You got to kind of put in your time in this industry. I mean, most of us that have been doing this have traveled. We travel to 3 or 4 workshops a year that cost $1,000 in travel and room and board to get there. You have to pay your dues in this industry, and it's actually better for you because you don't want to be doing the same thing somebody locally is doing anyway. You want to be doing something completely unique to you. You got to practice, 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 and you got to be honest with your position in life. Wanting it's not enough. I mean, you got to be willing to sacrifice. Now, my wife was out on tour. In fact, both of us have been out on tour with Sandy Putsch, and we used to commonly hear people say, oh, well, I could never do this. I could never do that. I've got my children. I've got that. Everybody's got a great excuse for why they're not where they want to be. But I'm telling you, I half got involved with Sandy because I wanted to see how she got done what she gets done. And the answer, the girl works her butt off. She's got kids. She's got a family. She's made sacrifices, you guys. And most people that are successful will tell you that it didn't come easy. They had to sacrifice to get there. So you know what? If you've got young children at home, and this is what we did when we sold the studio, that's great. You can be the awesome parent, you can be the amazing photographer, but sometimes you can't have everything all at one time. So it's important to look at your life, look at where you're at, look at where your priorities are, and go for that. And maybe, you know, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, you'll be in a position to capitalize on something else that you want. Okay, understand that most people are lazy. This is something we go after all the time because, let's put it this way, one of the most interesting compliments I get on some of my shoots, the water shoots, the flower shoots, is, hey, I tried this, and oh my gosh, what a mess. Always a lot of work. I may not do this very often. You're damn right. It's a lot of work, and it's a mess. And you know what? Nobody else is doing it, at least in our area. So, you know, sometimes you got to look around, and if you want to stand out, you got to be willing to go that extra mile. Now, let me tell you that we have done things with these shoots, like especially this one. I mean, I've got $60 in flour and tarps and so forth in every one of these shoots. Nobody's going to be able to do that for $100 on a disc. What we will do sometimes is we'll schedule multiple flower shoots in one day. So the mess is made one time, and we get 4 or 5 sessions out of it, and then we clean it up. We still give an individualized experience to everyone, and yet not have to set this up every time. We've done it indoors, we've done it outdoors. My preference is we've got a rooftop out back we set up on the roof. Still put the tarps down and everything, and then when it's done, we fold up all the tarps and we hose it off or blow it out with the leaf blower. Now, one word of caution. We had a local photographer that attempted something along this lines and in a location that was not far from our studio and left a horrendous mess. She didn't bother cleaning up after herself. And we let her know kindly, like, okay, this look is, you know, people know us for this look. When you leave a mess like this, not only does it look bad on all photographers, but they're going to think we did it, and that we have an issue with. So, I mean, be conscious of, there's areas in this country that we've been to and done workshops at where they've got signs in the parks that say no photographers or must have a permit. I mean, if you're trampling flower beds or ruining an experience for a family out enjoying a day in the park, you're making everybody look bad. So be always aware of the fact that you represent photographers in general and your own company brand. Okay, enough of that. And like I say, you guys please don't take this as me scolding you. Take this as me challenging you to kick your own butt and really look at the things you do and why you do them. So, excuse me, be aware of your weaknesses, turn them into strengths. Okay, this backdrop and water thing is something that I've become somewhat known for, and it stems from the fact that I was hanging around some shooters that were doing some amazing underwater photography. And while I loved it, I was like, looks like a lot of work. There's a lot of expensive equipment involved, and honestly, what a pain in the butt. But I wanted to give my seniors a wet water type experience, and it took a little bit of thinking, but it's like, hey, what about dropping a backdrop in a pool, doing something unique, something different, try and keep everything above the water. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this. If you guys want to look me up on YouTube, if you haven't seen it already, I've got a video that explains this whole process, how we do it, why we do it. These were done with little $35 flashlights as lighting, totally safe, easy to do. What you see is what you get. But by adding this backdrop in, we eliminate the horizon lines from the pool, the furniture and stuff that's in the backdrop, and we get these pretty killer reflections out of everything. And it's sort of a double take image. It's like, I don't understand that, but it's cool. So this is something like, say, it was a weakness of mine. I wasn't going to spend the time and effort to do underwater photography, but I developed something that was unique to me that replaced it. Here's another interesting thing. You're going to see in a lot of my work, and like I say, this is a result of being that guy that has been around for a while and shot some things. You know, if you've done this long enough, I mean, at first it's magical because when you get that shot that's just perfect, it's like, oh my gosh, how did it happen? But after a while, you know, if you put the light here and you do certain things and you pose in such a way, you kind of know what it's going to look like. And at that point, photography loses a little bit of its magic, a little bit of its luster. as a result, it can tend to get a little boring. My answer for that, my weakness that I've addressed, is I just throw a bunch of random crap around, and it's exciting to me. I learned that when I was shooting lightning for a while, and every shot was like a surprise. Like, oh, wow, that turned out cool, or it didn't turn at all. This is my way of surprising myself by just getting elements that are moving, that are somewhat out of control, and then it's that similar experience to when you first saw that image come up in a darkroom tray, like, poof, I got it, I nailed it, that's awesome. So you'll see that in my work a lot. This is still wool that's being spun kind of off camera, but you know, where we've got an umbrella over there to protect her and her hair from any sparks or anything like that. But it's got a cool effect where things hit and bounce and spark and kind of go crazy. But again, it's randomness that, you know, 8 of these shots were terrible. 1 worked. And I find that keeps me interested in what I'm doing. It drives me to continue to experiment and do different effects, different looks. Same thing, random material tossed in the air. Just an element of unpredictability is what drives me. It's a weakness of mine. It helps me. I laugh when people say, oh my gosh, you're so creative. This is my crutch for being not as creative as I'd like to be, is I just insert randomness in my photos for my own personal pleasure. Water, same thing. Something that's just flying around. And you got to work on your posing, you got to work on your expression. This is not, there's still the core elements of photography there, but then you introduce something that's unpredictable. Slide in home. I wish I didn't put the slide in the show, but this poor guy, we said, can you do a, slide head first in home? He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. First one, he hit and stuck and face planted hardcore, and I've got that image where he's like almost arched up with his legs in the air, but we tried it a couple more times, and the one we ended up with was what I was looking for. Same thing. This is that color over technique with the flower that we were talking about. I love working with dancers because it's the same thing. It's unpredictable. I mean, you get your timing down to where you know you're going to get peak extension, but you still never know quite how things are going to work out. This particular girl, I was watching her carefully, and she pulls faces. Some dancers can really do strenuous moves and still keep a calm, pleasant face. Some pull like very strained faces and their necks get strained. I saw that happening
a little bit. From Crystal, are the backdrops okay to put in a saltwater pool, and how would you clean them afterwards?
Saltwater should be fine. Now, if you're using our color smacks, which is what I showed you in the images, and that's what we use for the water, we literally throw them in the washer and dryer. They're completely washable, dryable. They're resistant to chlorine, never had a fading or bleeding, running type of issue, so salt water shouldn't be any more abrasive than the chlorine would. In fact, it should be less as far as I know.
Vance brought up a couple of points. One thing interesting, I guess Vance does a lot of shots using a fog machine, and he's been trying to gel his lights to light the fog, but now he's got a whole new technique that you just showed tonight on how not to have to bother with that.
Mm-hmm.
But he also brought up the point of, and I know you and I have talked about this before, but for the benefit of others in the room, when working with flour in an enclosed environment, are you concerned about explosions?
That's funny that you'd say that, because the very first time we did a little workshop like this, that was like one of the comments that came up. And I'd purposely chosen flour because I'd read that the cornstarch or the holly powder or whatever has a, it's like you hear the corn mills having explosions and so forth, but I'd heard that cornstarch is quite prone to that. So after hearing this about the flour, I did some research, and sure enough, flour can, if flour is aerolized in small particles, it can catch on fire just like corn powder or corn flour can. But I swear to you, I literally, after I found this information out, ran around my front yard with a blowtorch and a straw and was blowing flour and cornstarch and trying to see if and every once in a great while I could get it to kind of like flash a tiny bit, but I mean, it's not, I mean, you're not talking about a huge area that's got thousands of pounds of this stuff in it. Like I say, they do the color runs and this kind of thing, and it's, yes, it is flammable. No, I'm not at all worried about it. You would have to have a huge I don't even know what it would take, but I couldn't repeat it in my front yard with about 2 hours worth of trying to get it to actually flash on me.
Did you ever have concerns about not the flower exploding, but just being sucked into your lights from a cooling fan or something?
My lights have been put through this a number of times. The lights that I'm using mostly are, particularly for this, are like, oh gosh, what are they? 20, probably 20-year-old photogenics, and I've never had an issue. I mean,
Okay.
some of them have been dropped in the past, and they make little noises and stuff from that, but never had an issue with it. Having said that, when we did this in Canada, the guy brought in some brand new Einsteins that he takes meticulous care of, and he'd set up lighting with an umbrella, which faces the strobe head to the person throwing the flower. And I said, you know what, let's switch that out for a softbox so that the strobe head is away from the person throwing flower, and that softbox basically acts like a catcher's mitt and prevents it from hitting the strobe directly.
Right. Good point. Kate was asking if you have a video for steel wool.
I don't have a video for that. If I do have a video on a fire technique, and the steel wool is not a lot different. I mean, the concept is the same. It's a long exposure. You freeze the subject with the strobes and then drag the exposure for 5, 10, 15 seconds to catch the trails of the sparks. I shot this one time early on in Arizona with a videographer, and he's like, well, that's cool. He's looking at his footage. He's like, that's cool, but I don't know. I don't get it. When he saw the still image with the long exposure where you see all the trails but not just the sparks themselves, he's like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So yes, it's the same as if you look me up on YouTube again, check out the fire video, take the fire element out, add the steel wool, and if you just look up steel wool spinning on YouTube, and there's a ton of people that are, you know, doing it just for fun.
Right. Now, one of the points that you were making about this image just before we lost your audio was how you encouraged her to relax her expression. Maybe you could just review that again.
Right. Yeah, when we set up for the dancer shots like this, particularly with the flower, the lighting's always coming from the side. I've got a slide in here somewhere that shows the setup, but it's typically a 4x6 on one side and a small strip on the other side. And I tell them, look at either light, but don't look at me. It never looks natural to have them doing something like this and then staring at the camera. And the lighting's never good for that. I mean, the side lighting like that, these are literally at a, what would it be, 90-degree angle to me. If they turn their face to me, it's like bad split lighting or hatchet lighting. It doesn't look good. So yeah, we instruct them to look to one light or the other. And this girl, most girls, I'll tell them, like, relax, you know, as you do this, even though this is very hard work, relax your face, relax, try to not show the strain in your neck. Some girls can do that, some girls can't. This particular girl pulled faces every time which I can't even do this, so I mean, who am I to criticize? But every time she jumped or leaped, she would pull faces, and a lot of strain showing on her neck. So I had her standing there, looking at the light, eyes closed, to get a relaxed face shot that I knew I was going to have to composite in later.
I was talking, but my mic was off. Yeah, I was just saying I never would have guessed. So this shot is you composted her face in?
Into her neck to relieve some of the strain there too, but the hair is from the original shot.
Now, Rosa's Okay, this is something, Rosa, if you can hang on to the Q&A portion, I'll get Travis to look into that for you. Okay, sorry, Travis, if you want to go ahead.
Continue on. All right, so while we show a lot of this, I mean, this is our mess bill that we do crazy, cool, interesting. We're selling a whole bunch of classically lit, well done headshots and three-quarter links. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but don't get so crazy thinking you've got to be shooting nothing but, you know, awesome images. What people still like to spend their money on is just well done portraits. You guys want to beat the cheap photographers? We've all got them. I mean, I kid you not. You say you can't throw a rock without hitting a photographer. That is so the case where I'm at. I mean, literally, we just had a studio move in that, like, when I walk out on our rooftop, which we shoot on all the time, the windows right there is to another studio. So, and I mean, they're great people and everything, but we've got like 3 photographers on this block. So, if you want to beat the cheap guys, stop playing their game on their turf. Spend some money on your marketing, your advertising, get your images in front of your clients. Social media advertising seems like it's free, but it sucks. It sucks the life out of you. There's so much time involved in monitoring that stuff and getting it going, and you're just one of the masses in social media. These guys aren't charging enough money to do any real advertising, so if you start actually putting some money into physical print advertising or getting your message into the programs at the schools or things like that, you're in a league of your own, okay? So like I say, if you're getting frustrated, stop trying to play their game. Be a first-rate version of yourself rather than a second-rate version of someone else. If you're studying under someone else or if you're learning a technique, I can't encourage you enough to learn it to the point where you master it and then make it your own. Because if you just master it, you're always going to be like, well, he's almost as good as so-and-so. I mean, one of my big idols in this industry is Richard Sturdivant. If you haven't seen his work, you have to look him up. But I absorb myself into his techniques, but I'm never going to be him. I never have any ambition to be him. I'm going to take what I can use out of his techniques, and I'm going to make that mine. So think about that when you guys are trying to be, you know, increase your creativity and increase your vision. Okay, established studios. Here's something that's important. This is an actual yearbook ad that is from our main high school here in town. And the not pictureds, this is a real page. We actually put our work in here in place of the yearbook work. But everywhere it says not pictured was not pictured, which that tells us, okay, we're not really competing against other photographers in town, other studios in town, as much as we are competing with the fact of whether these kids are going to get shot or not. Once you understand that, maybe it's not even a bad idea to combine efforts with some photographers and put out a combined marketing piece, you know, like, hey, it's important. This is one time in your life. Make sure not to miss out. But reach out to these guys. Change the conversation. If you've got any, this is kind of a funny story because not everyone in my office agrees with this, but we've got if you guys got local like buy, sell, trade or garage sale type listings on Facebook, these things are absolutely insane. Somebody will say, I need photographs done for $20 and there's 80 people just negotiating for who could do it at the lowest price. It is nuts. What I do is every once in a while, if I've got extra time, I'll go in and check one of those posts and I'll just say something like, you know, if you're looking for cheap, that's easy. That's everywhere. If you're actually concerned about quality, make sure to give us a call. And I don't intend on booking any of these people, but I'm trying to change the conversation. And it's having an effect. I'm starting to see the photographers now on there, instead of saying, I'll do it for 25, I'll do it for 15, they're saying, here's my work, choose me. That's what I want people to do, is start to, sell your style, sell yourself. Don't sell the lowest price. One of the other guys, we got a great kid in town. It's like 16 years old, and he's shooting a lot of high school seniors. he shares with me sometimes. He's like, oh, I just did this. I'm so happy with it. What do you think? And I told him, I think probably 3 weeks ago, I said, looks great. You're doing good. You're pushing the business thing pretty hard. Are you, like, have you got yourself right with sales tax and insurance? Are you operating above board? Because you're making enough of this, it's going to bite you. And he was just like, oh, I totally know that I have to do that. I just have no idea how. So we've actually got an appointment to sit down, and I'm going to help him walk through the process of getting legal, paying his sales tax, getting registered with the, I mean, some of these people that are professional photographers, they just don't even know what they don't know. And I mean, it's a, don't get me wrong, it's a delicate line to talk to them about this without being very, very offensive. But, you know, like I say, some of them have the best of honest intentions, and they just don't know what they should be doing. Okay, guys, don't be afraid of change. Change is inevitable, okay? And I talk to so many people that are afraid of making this decision because it's going to be permanent. Like, oh my gosh, if I change this, I can never go back. Well, you can always go back, and the only thing that's really permanent is doing absolutely nothing. That's, you're always going to be right where you are if you're not willing to take some risks. And risks is what it's all about. This is a very rapidly changing business, and if you're not willing to be on the cutting edge, you're going to be following. You're going to be imitating. Fact of the matter is, if you've got a great idea and you're completely unique, you've got 2 years, 2 to 3 years tops on that idea. I don't care whether it's as a vendor manufacturing photo products or a photographer. In 2 to 3 years, somebody's going to be copying it, and they're going to be doing it as good, if not better than you, for less. So constantly look for ways to change and adapt and become the top of your field. Okay, even marriage can't survive on passion alone. Now, anybody that's in this webinar right now, if you've got on your About Me page, or whether there's your Facebook or your website, it says, I'm so passionate about photography, I want you to stop what you're doing right now and go take that off of there. Because like every photographer I know is passionate about photography. Okay, and it's sort of a perversion of the term. Like a marriage, it's highly passionate in the beginning, so is photography, but that's going to go away. And if that's all you've got, then you're done. Technically, once you start charging money for something, it's a little disingenuous to say you're passionate about it, because if you're passionate about it, you'd be doing it for free. We could talk about love and intimacy and charging and how that's no longer passionate, but we won't go there. So think about the things you say to people, and whether you're being truthful to yourself or you're just trying to create a message that makes you seem like an artist. Your schedule belongs to you, and it's up to you to control it. Okay, this year we have no intention. I mean, I gave up my weekends for so long. I mean, there was times there with our previous studio that my friends would want to go do something. I would look 6 months into the future before I could find a weekend to go do it. I don't ever want to go back there again. And if I'm going to give up a weekend, it's going to be worth my time. So this is something that's completely in your control. And yet, as photographers, self-employed people, we tend to think, oh, we have to be here. We have to be available for that day. Oh my gosh, if I don't book them, they won't book. I promise you, if you just, I mean, if you feel like you got to be there on a Saturday, open one up like once a month, once every 5-6 weeks, and say, well, the very first, you don't have to say don't do Saturdays. You can just say the very first Saturday appointment I have available is X date. Would you like me to schedule you then, or would you like to get out of school or take off work or whatever it takes to get in sooner than that? And this is common sense, and I know this, and I preach this, and yet I was just down in Florida talking to Gary Box, and I'm like, Gary, oh my gosh, how do you not have to do these late evening sales sessions with seniors? They all, I mean, the schools are cracked down on attendance so much, I can't get them to get out of school. And he's like, it's simple. You tell them you close at 6, and you only have one appointment after school, and the soonest they can get in is 3 weeks from now, which is exactly the same thing I tell people on Saturdays. So sometimes it just helps to be like smashed in the face with this and reminded like, oh yeah, it's up to me and I'm in control of it. I'm the one creating my misery in a lot of these cases. Okay guys, don't expect full-time results with part-time efforts. We talked a little bit about this earlier with like being honest with your position in life. Well, the same holds true. self-employed people, photographers particularly, have this habit of like, I'm only open by appointment only, and that's great. But if you're only working by appointment only, you're never going to make forward progress. I mean, be a good employee to yourself. You are self-employed, but don't. I mean, you wouldn't expect an employee to only come in and work when there's something to do, because then you're not there marketing. You're not there being aggressive. You're not the hungry hunter trying to get work. I mean, dedicate some time to be at your business, and even if your business is your home, dedicate time where you're not being distracted by, you know, expectations of the family or house cleaning or laundry or whatever, to focus on your business. And I promise you, you will get more results out of that. I mean, I've heard people complain that sometimes, like, oh my gosh, I just wish I could be where these people are. And you're talking about maybe a husband and wife team that are full-time, 24 hours a day. This is what they eat, breathe, and sleep. You can't expect the same results if you're only able or willing to give it 3 or 4 hours a day. So just be conscious of where you're at in life and what your real goals are and what you're willing to sacrifice to get there. Photography ethics. We talked about this a little bit, but compete on style and quality and service. Don't compete on price. It is really not a compliment for someone to come to you and say, hey, I came to you because you're cheapest in town. It's actually an insult. If you compete based on price, what you're going to find out is that customer has no loyalty at all. They went to you because you're the cheapest in town. And the next person that comes out that's cheaper, guess what? They're down the road. When you finally decide that you need to start making some money at this, you're going to lose all those people anyway because they're price-oriented. They didn't come to you because you're the best at what you do. If you're too busy for something or you don't like shooting it or you're not good at it, refer it to somebody else. It's a great way to network with other businesses and say, look, I don't like to shoot weddings. Would you like to shoot it? And if I get anybody in for that, I'll send them to you. If there's things that you don't like to do, send them to me because I love doing this. Don't get into things that you're not qualified for. You will hate it and you will resent it and you'll wish you never did. School contracts and things like this. There is a lot of organization and things that go into that. It's not something you just jump into and everything goes smoothly. Don't badmouth your competition. I've heard photographers, I've walked in on photographers talking about, oh, though so-and-so down the street, I'm glad you came here because this person, blah, 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 whatever. I will never do business with somebody that does that. And it looks bad on you. I mean, if somebody else is complaining to you, and we get this with Silver Lake, we get this with the studio, but if somebody's talking about a bad experience they had with one of your competition, it's simple to just say, you know what, we hear that from time to time. But I don't know anything firsthand or whatever. But this is what I can do for you. Don't get in this game of talking down your competition. It's not good for anybody. Find your inspiration, but avoid copying it directly, especially local people. Like I say, what's the point of being second best in your town? Unless you want to be second most expensive. Let's see here. Okay, this is for the old-timers, right? I mean, when computers first started becoming commonplace, we were neck-deep in photography sessions. So I was fortunate that I got out of photography right at the time things started going hardcore digital, so I was allowed the time to teach myself Photoshop without having to drive the overhead machine, pay the employees, pay the overhead of the studio. A lot of people weren't that lucky, and they are coming at this from not being very familiar with it because they were busy earning a living. Here's the thing, though. I see this from photographers a lot where they're great photography. When I look at something like this, I'm like, oh, he knows how to light, he knows composition, posing, whatever. But wow, this guy's got trouble with design. Or girl. Could be girls. But I'm telling you right now, guys, even I don't care how good your photography is, the scrapbookers are kicking your butt. So this, rainbow texted outer glow, the simplest of Photoshop techniques is not going to cut it. If you aren't good at design, take a class. Go to your community college. Hire it out to somebody that is good at it. I'm lucky. My partner in crime here, she's amazing at text and fonts and so on. And anytime I have trouble, I lean on her. But if I didn't have her here, I would definitely seek help elsewhere. Jen Hellingate just put on a great class in Florida about design and text and fonts and the way they work together. So if you know this is a weakness of yours, or better yet, if you don't know this is a weakness of yours, look at your work and do some self-examination. And if you need help, get help. Create a process. sprinkle in creativity with what you already know, right? You don't want to spend time experimenting with paying clients. They paid you for a product that you've shown them before, and they expect you to deliver on that. But you can always add in a little bit of something creative. For me, I'm not an inspired dude. I don't just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be perfect, let's do this. If I can't plan it and pre-visualize it, it usually goes fairly normal. So as a result, we know this. We are pretty conscious about getting people in for either a physical or at least a telephone pre-consultation. So we can talk to them, we get their interests down, we take careful notes on what kinds of things they like, what kinds of things they'd like to see. Oftentimes we'll have them construct a Pinterest gallery and send that to us. And these are things that I may the night before, the day before, the week before look at and internalize, and sort of in the back of my mind I'm cooking up a plan on how this is going to go. And I found for me that helps me be more prepared and basically planned creativity. I'm more of a technician than I am an artist, so that's how it has to work for me. Pick a theme, you guys, and begin a journey. Do something just like this month I'm going to shoot dark stuff, or I'm going to shoot innocent stuff, or I'm going to shoot the color blue, and incorporate that in every shoot and just sort of challenge yourself to step outside of your comfort zone and do something that makes you think. You can certainly involve clients in the process. I promise you this, the more crazy stuff you show, the more people with crazy cool ideas will come to you and they'll have their own input. Keep a notepad by your bedside end table. Can't tell you how many times I wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, and if there's no place to write it down, it just gets lost. Storyboard your ideas, like write this stuff down, and maybe even character develop with it. You know, more like you do for a movie or a TV sitcom or something. Understand not just what this person's going to be lit and pose like, but what they're feeling and how all that's going. And you'll find you'll have a different element to your work. Okay, guys, because technology is cheap. Learning curve is so much shorter with digital, right? So anybody can be a photographer, and that's the status of the industry. Like it or not, with that digital display, you know instantly when you got it and when you didn't get it. And you can seek help pretty cheaply and figure out how to get improve on your craft. Now, as professionals, we have to master the things that require skill and practice, because like we talked about earlier, people are lazy. They're not making enough money to put their full time and attention into it, and they're just not. I mean, these classified ads we're talking about. Somebody posts for cheap photos, and hundreds of people respond. I post in there about the professional photographers of Idaho having a seminar, and it's crickets. So you know that's what you're up against. Continually educate yourself as photographers. Become great with the things that require patience, practice, and skill. And you will stand out from everybody else. What you shoot is likely not what's paying, or what you like to shoot is likely not what's paying your bills. On some of the groups and forums and so forth that I'm on, I see a lot of people that like to photograph models, or in the boudoir niche, they like to photograph, mid-20s girls that look perfect. They're fun to shoot. Well, that's all fine and well, but you have to be realistic about who your paying clients are. I mean, if I could do anything in the world, I'd go shoot landscapes. I'm not particularly good at it, but I enjoy it. And I'm honest and realistic about the fact that I don't have the wherewithal to sell that work. I know who buys my work. I know how to cater to them. Same thing with like models. I mean, we hit the model thing hard with our seniors, but when people come to us about modeling at older, after they've left the house, after they're on their own, they're barely making it. I mean, they don't have big incomes yet. They're not our client. They're fun to shoot, don't get me wrong, but there's no point in me pursuing that, because that's not what pays my bills. If I need it do something for a creative project, I can use somebody in that realm, but typically I would rather use somebody that is going to be a client of ours anyway, upcoming junior or something like that. So create for yourself, but never lose sight of your job, you guys. You can have fun at work, and I encourage you to have fun at work, but work's not always fun, and that's just life. Some of the bread and butter clients of ours are the ones that aren't the really, really attractive people, boy or girl. They're the ones that have never seen themselves as beautiful. And we can crack that and show that to them. That is A, personally rewarding, and B, those are our top orders every time, every season. Okay, guys, successful people read books, or at least they're capable of listening to audiobooks. A couple that I really like that are worth checking out. One's called Eat That Frog, Brian Tracy. It's a good book. You'll have to check it out. But the core concept is we tend to do things that are easy, and we have a list of things that need to be done that day. Well, we'll do the things that are the easiest for us, or the most fun, or take the least amount of time, and then we figure we'll get to that big project later. This is Eat That Frog is trying to train you to tackle that one thing, the one thing you've been putting off that's probably going to make the biggest difference in your life, and do that first. Then do all the little tasks that you know you can pick up anyway. Predictably Irrational is a book that Dave Junian recommended to me. It's fantastic. Just talks about people, why they buy what they buy, how to get inside the mindset. If you can understand the business aspect of photography, you will go far. There's a lot of photographers out there that are not particularly extraordinary photographers, but they're good business people that are making a lot of money. They're making a comfortable living. There's a lot of photographers out there that are incredible artists that can barely get by month to month. So study the business. If it's not a strong point of yours, if you're more of a creative person, pour yourself into the business and make that your challenge to get better at that. Equipment. Photographers are techies, they're geeks, they love to have the newest, greatest, latest camera. My question is, do you need it or do you just want it? Is it going to make you money? Could that money, let's go all Dave Ramsey on your bad self, would that money be better invested in marketing and advertising and then take the proceeds from that marketing and advertising to buy your equipment? Think carefully about, I do workshops all the time where most of the attendees have nicer, better, newer, more expensive cameras than me. And I upgrade when it's important, when there's been big leaps in technology, when higher ISO gets better and tighter, and I feel like my work is going to get stronger, and I know that's going to make me money. But just because it's the newest and latest, greatest, and I want bragging rights, I'm not that guy. And your business will be stronger if you aren't that person either. Okay, this is the message we have to get across to our clients in whatever way we can. This happened to us like a month ago. Our sink overflowed in our bathroom, and our landlord got an insurance check, and she was going to have the floors refinished. They decided to keep the money from the insurance company and do it themselves. This is what happened afterwards. This is what they looked like. And I told them, I said, well, we hadn't started moving anything back in because I wasn't sure if this was like a middle stage or what, and they were like, nope, we're kind of done. So we brought somebody in to do the floors right. These floors serve as backdrops for us and foregrounds for us, and this was not going to work. So we hired somebody who came in. They spent, instead of an afternoon, they spent like 6 days sanding, prepping, staining to get this. Same floors, same area, went from this to this. And this is not different, much different than what's going on in the photo industry. Yeah, there's people out there who can do it. There's people out there who can do it for very cheap. But to do it right requires time, skill, have a mastery of your craft, and be willing to put in the time preparing it, lighting it right, posing it well, getting the right expression, and so on. So somehow it's all up to us to police our own backyards and get this message out. Like, you get what you pay for. 3 biggest things I see lacking in a lot of photographers' work these days: expression, posing, and lighting. And the expression, this happens on both ends of the spectrum. This happens on newer photographers, and this happens on extremely, extremely talented photographers. And what I see, and I'm guilty of it myself, but what I see happening, newer photographers don't know how to pose necessarily. They don't know how to light. They're uncomfortable with their equipment, and it's coming across in everything they're doing. At the different hands-on workshops we attend, I see photographers commonly say, oh, I don't know, just go up there and do something. Oh, not that, turn this way. Oh, okay, well, let's see, maybe bend this way. The model or the subject or the paying client gets the impression that they're not doing something right, and this isn't going well. On the flip side of the spectrum, the extremely good photographer that's like a PPA scoring phenomenon, he's doing things like really technical. I'm worried about this. Let me get this. Oh, this image is great. Oh, this scene is perfect. He's complimenting basically himself instead of catching the subject doing something right. Oh my gosh, you're beautiful. Oh, that's perfect. It makes a big difference in the way people feel about the image and the way their expression is in the image. So it's important, no matter what your levels of skill set is, to exude that confidence and make sure that the person that's in front of your camera is feeling like they're doing something right. And it's something you train yourself to do. You learn it. It becomes a banter, but it's very, very, very important. Posing, if you're not good at it, there's plenty of, Jen Hellinger is one of the best. There's plenty of people that have instructional videos out on it. Posing is critical. Lighting is critical. These are the things that separate us from the person that just holds a camera for $100 and is basically a someone else-y instead of a selfie. Pricing. What's your why? Why would somebody choose you? I ask that to photographers a lot of times just to see the dumb look on their face. They don't have an answer for this question. If you can't explain what makes you different, why you're, whether it's I'm a full service studio, I do this, that, and the other, I've got 3 photographers, completely unique styles, we are fully custom in the way we do things, we consult with you, you have to be able to explain to people what makes you unique. If you can't, why can't they go get it somewhere else or less? Ford, Lexus, and Ferrari, right? We all know the difference in quality just because of a lifetime of advertising, but we need to be able to relay these things to our clients. You know, you could go to a car dealer and say, well, this one's a $150,000 car and this one's a $30,000 car. What's the difference? He could seat you in there and show you the leather seats and the horsepower and the torque ratio and all these things. We as photographers need to be able to do that with our studios as well. Same thing, McDonald's with Chris and Red Robin. We know there's a difference in quality as photographers. Are we portraying that to our clients, though? Are we, when we continually throw images out on social media, are we telling them that digital imagery is okay? Or are we, like today, we just had a girl come in, took a shot of her with her 16 by 24 composite, and she was like, wow, these look so much better in print than they do on my phone. These kinds of things reinforce the fact to your clients, like printing images is important. And there's a quality difference between somebody that's a full-service studio and somebody that's just turn and burn. If you can define your why should they pay more? Play to your strengths. If you're like we play to the strength that we've got a 3,000 square foot studio on Main Street. If I was a home studio or a location shooter, I would play to the strength that I come to you, I create in an environment that you're comfortable in. Everything we do, we show you images on the walls of your home with our projector. I mean, whatever my situation is, I'm going to use those as strengths. Word of mouth is great, advertising. It's one of the bigger drivers of business, but you don't have any really control over the word of mouth. You have to also be defining your message out to your clients. Price list, is it holding you hostage? We just got done revamping all of our prices, and I won't go into our method because I want to test it first, but I'm super excited about it. What we felt that our price list was doing before is holding us back from what we could be doing. And the main question to ask yourself is when you finish an order session, are people saying, oh, wow, that's about as much as I can afford, or something along those lines, or are they saying, that's pretty much all I need. That should cover our needs. If they're commonly saying, if that's the pattern that they're saying that should do it, that's everything I need, then you're probably not priced either high enough or you don't have enough diversity in your product line to get to where you could be. If you're maxing people out on budget, then you're probably priced about where you should be. Get paid for your time. Okay, some of the things we changed in our price list, we were doing a lot of work on albums and wallets and albums and books and templates and composites, things that took a lot of design time and weren't necessarily being compensated for that. So our new price list is structured with like order minimums on the session fees, so we kind of know when somebody comes in, okay, they're at least spending this much, so we can go all out on these guys. But if they just want something quick indoor and they're afraid of a higher order minimum, then we're not going to completely kill ourselves on these people just to be disappointed later. There's people that want to come to us that can't afford us, but they still want the experience, they still want that quality. So look at your price list and see if it's holding you back from getting the averages that you can get. If you're not selling in person, this is tough. You don't have any control over what's going on. You don't know what why things are working or are not working. And honestly, you're missing one of the coolest parts of this entire business. When somebody first sees their images and they're like just emotional reaction out of it, that's like why I do what I do. So if you aren't doing in-person sales, you are probably sacrificing profits, and you are missing something that's just like the coolest thing about being a photographer. Marketing your brand, you guys. Be consistent. Be positive. Careful not to sound desperate. Cater to your clients that you have now, or that you want, even if it's not what you have now. Find people that hang out. Find where your clients are hanging out and get your images in front of them. Now, be careful not to sound desperate. Again, Facebook feed, but I see photographers sometimes like, oh, this week we're doing this. This week there's always a sale. I've seen it go as far as it's name your own price week at such and such photography. People are not stupid. They realize that you're not busy and there's probably a reason. Okay, so keep your message out there like, look, we're really, really busy, but this is what we want to do. Or just keep your brand consistent and your message strong. This is some of the things that we do. This is kind of interesting because when we started this, we were putting quotes on images for a couple of reasons. We wanted that to reinforce our message, kind of uplifting and inspirational, but we also were putting quotes on there so that these images were not easily swiped for social media profile images. People are less likely to do that because there's this wording on there and they can't get it to crop right, and it would cut some of it off. So that was sort of our original motivation behind it, but the outcome has been amazing. Okay, we have people now that are coming to us saying, oh, I love you guys' quotes. I look at them every day. I've got some ideas. Could we do something along this line? And we're actually sometimes shooting to incorporate a certain quote or a certain message. And a lot of these kids this year have been saying, I want this exactly like you worded it on the back of my album. So some things that you do are kind of meant as a copyright protection become a thing that's your brand. Okay? So a lot of this stuff we gear it towards parents and the seniors. This one in particular was we had her send us some childhood photos and kind of contrast that, like, look, I'm grown up now. This child of yours that you've raised from nothing is going to be leaving the house soon. This is an important milestone in her life. Same thing here. Mothers hold on to their child's heart or the child's hand for a moment, their heart for a lifetime. We're trying to get to these parents and make them realize that, this is it. This is a big deal. Some of it's aimed at the seniors. Greatness. We can make it. So this is sort of like the posters that they see in the athletics departments or the athletics sections of the stores, and yet it's getting our message out there, strong message to the seniors. Don't get me wrong, every once in a while we take a shot. We try to keep it positive and uplifting, but one time in your life, it's all about you. Sure, your friend's mom has a nice camera and can take your pictures for free, but can she capture you like the super athlete you are? Okay, sometimes you have to go a little bold with your message to say, hey, you know what? Pay attention to the quality. It's important. Why fit in when you were born to stand out, right? I mean, these kids are responding really, really well to these quotes that we've been doing. This is a recurring theme in our marketing. It's your senior year. Choose phenomenal. I mean, we expect a lot of these seniors. We push them hard, and we want them to be phenomenal, and we We want them to choose phenomenal, which is synonymous with our brand. T&P modeling. Okay, this is something we do, again, to stand out and be different than anyone else in the area. I'm not going to talk at great length about this, but you're welcome to contact me about it later. We run a program called T&P Model, and basically the concept is I've got a lot of connections in the photo industry, and I can get girls opportunities, or guys opportunities that they may not have otherwise. So for instance, a couple of the big projects, we put out this magazine a few times a year, and we feature kids from all of our member studios in the magazine. We just put together a book with Amherst Media all about the stylized shoot, which represents photographers from all of our participating studios. So it's a chance for them to give their seniors a national modeling experience. I mean, these kids will now have a physically published, nationally published piece to be able to add to their section of memories. And as photographers, we know a lot of the girls we photograph are beautiful, but they don't have the body to be a runway model. They don't have the exact dimensions to fit that mold, but we can photograph them in a way that they are model material. We can get them in these national things. So that's the concept behind T&P. It's pretty cool because, like I say, I just arranged a bunch of the T&P member models are going down to Vegas for WPPI, and they're going to be modeling for the speakers that need them for their photo walks. So like say other people in our area, of course, everyone's running a model program, but not everyone's taking them to Vegas. Not everyone's publishing books. Not everyone's got them in a magazine that's coming out on a national basis. So if you're at all interested in that, you can talk to me later, but it's like $200 a year for the studio. It's $50 for each model you register, but we encourage you through the program to pass that $50 on to your model. So if you want to be in our modeling program as a session add-on, it's an extra $50. That's how we handle that. If you're interested, email me at info@themodelprogram.com and I'll send you the details. It Matters project is something we did last year, and you guys, this is so much fun. We wanted to get that message out, like quality matters, okay? So instead of bagging on somebody else or trying to say, why are people content with this garbage, we went out and shot our own crappy photos. And we did it over the course of, we did it all one day, but then we released these over the course of a few weeks and asked people, what do you like? You like A or B better, and why? And it developed quite the conversation. I mean, I think this one is what, there's like 40-some likes, and the important thing is the comments. 76 comments, right? We started a conversation with our clients, and the funny thing is, they were noticing, I mean, these guys were tag on. When you compare a well-done shot next to a poorly done shot, people get it. And when they see that on somebody else's page, they're like, oh, wait, there's light all over her chest. There's light skimming across her nose. That's just like what we talked about the other day about the bad shot on the Brinks photographs. So this is a sort of a positive way for us to reach out to the community and alert them to the differences in quality without being negative on other people. At the end of this whole project, we used the same model. We brought her in and said, hey, we really appreciate you doing this. Some of these photographs were not particularly flattering of you, and we want to give you a gift. We'll give you a CD of everything we shot, the good, bad, and the ugly, or we'll give you this beautifully done print wrap that we already had done up in advance. And she was like, oh my gosh, she chucks the disc down on a table. I love this, and grabs the print wrap. Subliminal things, right, you guys? This $1,200 gift certificate, why $1,200? Because our average senior spends $1,500, $1,600, $1,800. We didn't want to give away a $100 gift certificate because we wanted people to associate that number with, wait, that's a big number, A, and B, $1,200 is an appropriate amount to expect to spend here. So when you're reinforcing your brand, think about everything you do and how it might be interpreted. If you haven't checked this out yet, Likealyzer. I think it's Likealyzer, LikeAlyzer.com, and you can run metrics on your Facebook business page and other people in your area's Facebook business page, and it will tell you what your overall score is. I can tell you right now 88 is pretty high, and that's after we ran this contest and got everybody participating in our posts. So as you scroll down this Likealyzer metrics, it'll tell you where you need to improve, whether it's the time of day you're posting or what kinds of things you could do to increase your ranking. It's a good idea. I mean, Facebook's not the end-all be-all, especially with seniors these days, but it's nice to be able to kind of figure out what you should be doing better. Social media, you guys never forget that you're a business now. So what you post on social media, I don't care whether it's your page, your business page, your clients see it. And it's important that that message is consistent with your brand as well. Don't be starting fights on Facebook. Don't be like negative or airing out a bunch of really personal, like inappropriate things on Facebook. It's not good for business. When you talk, you're always busy. You're never like, oh boy, not doing anything today. It gives people the impression that maybe your work's not good. Maybe nobody wants to come to you. It's perfectly okay to only have a couple of sessions that week and say, oh my gosh, we're so busy doing this, we're on to do that. We're marketing this. Just be aware of your message and who's seeing it beyond your legitimate friends that you'd have a dinner or a drink with. Stay neutral, particularly on like political hot button issues, things that generate a lot of animosity. No point starting a Facebook war about anything on your page or somebody else, because you are a business and people will judge even if they don't get into the comments, and there's tons of people that agree with you, there's going to be tons of people that see that and they develop an opinion of you that may not be the opinion you want them to have. Answer back to all things professionally. Taking cheap shots may win you the battle. You're going to lose the war, though. Screen calls and social responses, right? This is today's technology. We've always got a cell phone on us, and we may get something come in, whether it's a phone call or a post on something that's like just after we had a fight with a child or a husband or boyfriend, or somebody cut us off in traffic. It's a good idea to not answer these things at that moment. Get to this place where you're calm and you can be professional and you're reacting to the actual comment, good, bad, or indifferent, rather than the situation that's going on in your life at that moment. Autoresponders. We send out we got like a mailing list of like 20,000 people for Silver Lake, and I get everybody's autoresponders back. And some of them say things like, I'm on vacation for the next 9 months, or I decided to take the month off, I'll get back to you next month. It says things to your clients that are not necessarily what you want to project as a business that they're going to spend an enormous amount of money with. So think about what you say and who and when. Make sure to turn your autoresponders off when you're actually at work too. Update your website constantly. This is critical with seniors. They want to see new work. They want to see this year's seniors. If you're showing stuff that's 5 years old, get rid of it. Show 3 great shots rather than 10 mediocre shots from too long ago. I can always tell when looking at a photographer's website if they've got the same shot of the same girl commonly. Either they don't shoot very much, or that's their child, or something like that. Less is better if you're showing a lot of repetition. Do you present yourself as full-time or part-time? It's important. It speaks volumes about what you charge and what your branding is. If you've got everything in place and you're missing one piece, it's not going to work. You're going to have trouble getting where you want to be. If you're doing everything right with your branding, your packaging, your everything, but you're not doing in-person sales, you're missing an element. If you're doing the in-person sales but you're not priced effectively, you're missing an element. You have to look at this from the entire outside picture. Okay, Facebook. This is hilarious. This is a somewhat local person. They're like a couple hours away from us. I tried to blur out all their stuff so I don't want to be offensive to anybody. But this is your message, and what I'm saying about being consistent. I look at this, senior portraits, such and such photography offers professional yet artistic photos for an affordable price. I like the design here. I look at this and I say, wow, this photographer's got style. They got a sense of class. I expect looking at this, their work might be pretty solid. The very next post in their feed, please pray that my computer had a virus and not a hardware malfunction. Otherwise, all of my photos are going to be lost, and I did not back up this month. Holy cow, are you kidding me? People, would you spend money with a lawyer who said, I don't know, I lost all my stuff, and maybe like every client I had this month is going to jail? I'm not sure. Think about what you're doing. Think about what you're saying. Think about how it's going to be interpreted and how it's going to be consistent or inconsistent with your message. Become reborn, you guys. I had an artist once who worked for us said, it's all been done before. I can't make up a new backdrop combination. Okay, dude, you need to work for somebody else because that's not the right attitude. No matter what you do, you can re-envision it, redo it, remake it. It's not all been done before. Look at music and so forth. we talked a little bit about this, imitating, like a musician, photographers have got to find their own flavor. I mean, how many famous cover bands do you know? If you're just doing the same thing as everyone else in town, only a little bit better, you got to find something that makes you completely different. So that voice, that message is different. When people see it, they know it's you. There's no question about it. Invent a competitive edge. Okay, you got to be creative because you were born to do it. I think I had this in the last program, but I love it. Urinals, you see these around every once in a while, the fly in it. This guy started putting flies in there because he did some research and found out that it avoided like 60% of the spillage because guys had something to aim at. Okay, I don't know. Agree with it, disagree with it, whatever. I see these fly urinals everywhere I go, in airports and big-time public places. This guy, I mean, he invented a competitive edge for the toilet. If he can do it, photographers can absolutely do it. It doesn't always have to be this message of like, I'm new, I'm completely, unique and brand, nobody does anything like me. It can be a message of, I'm traditional and I'm comfortable and I'm the way things have always been. This razor, one of the few things, I'm sorry, I'm an as seen on TV junkie. So this was one that I saw and I was like, oh, the message that they had resonated with me. They're like, oh my gosh, these new razors with the triple blades, they get clogged up, and I've been saying that for years. I think it's a big scam. It's like $5 or $10 for the razor with all the, few replacements, but then when you have to like get refills, it's like $35 or $25 for refills for your razor, and they're designed to clog up with gunk and go dull. So when these guys came out with that message, like this is a razor from the 1800s and it still works just as good as it always did, you can take this out and wash the razor out, and it works perfect. And I've had this thing now. It's the best 20 bucks I ever spent, but their message spoke to me. Sometimes you guys are shooting as a photographer, we're shooting for the sale, right? We want to shoot pleasing images that are just pretty like vanilla bread and butter portraits. And the same session, we're shooting for marketing, things that are like bold, and they're going to speak to their friends and get them to come in. And at the same time, we're shooting sometimes for the experience. Like I say, those are our marketing images. That's the message we're driving, even though we're selling a lot of fairly vanilla, classically done portraiture. Now, doing these kinds of sessions, it does have its costs. This couch still looks like this. I keep meaning to get in touch with a lady that does upholstery cleaning, but I mean, be aware, you're going to, it's going to be messy. This is the way that shoot's set up. This is the class we taught on the flower shooting in St. Louis. This is the setup like I talked about. Big old tarp, backdrop on top of it because the blue and the flower wouldn't work well together. I wanted something white. Typically I'm using 75 pounds of flour. It was actually tough to find that much in St. Louis. Apparently it wasn't baking season. We must have more bakers here because I don't have that trouble in town. But like I say before, it's a 4x6 on one side, strip box on the other, and it's just having them go through the motion. What I see most commonly go wrong with these type of shoots is everybody, remember I talked about the puzzle, one piece missing? People get the lighting down, they get the flower down, they get the cleanup and everything figured out, but they have somebody come in that's not a dancer, or they have a niece or a nephew or a friend or something to try it out, and it looks obvious in the images. I mean, you can tell, like, okay, this is kind of cool, but this person is not a gifted performer. Now, with that said, be aware of it, but like this particular shot, this girl came in on one of our flower shoot days, and she had a bum ankle, and she'd been out for a while, and she couldn't do the leaps or the moves or whatever. That's no excuse for not getting a killer shot of her. We actually did a print wrap like collage with 8 or 9 images, and every one of them was super solid, but it was important for that in the beginning. I determined what her strengths were, what her weaknesses were, and wasn't going to be pushing her to do things she wasn't capable of doing. So be aware that ultimately, as a photographer, it's your job to come out on top and get the shot regardless. Schedule creative inspiration, you guys. It's going to help you from burning out. If it doesn't hit the books, it's never going to happen. We make our or spokesmodels, we tell them when they get 4 referrals, they get stylized shoots. Okay, this is a win-win for us because I know I need these shoots to stay energized and creative, and I know that they want them. So it drives them to give me what I'd like, and in return, I get the things that I know I need. Surprise yourself, like we talked about the random elements or just things that are a little bit outside your comfort zone, make you think. Expose yourself to the extraordinary person. I'm a big proponent of this. As good as these webinars are, as good as Creative Live is, there are things you can't get online. First of all, you're paying half attention because you're probably editing images at this very moment. Second of all, you can't get in an online experience what you get in person. These guys that you look up to that are fantastic photographers, seeing them do it in person and go, wait a minute, that wasn't magic, I could do that. It's critical. Seeing things that other people do, and more than anything, the creative energy in a room full of other people that are driven to go somewhere will like light your fires to go home and like get real and get serious about what you're doing. Okay, business models that work, you guys. We're almost wrapping this up. This is my very last segment. But you can run a very successful high-volume and low-price photography business. You can run a high-end, low-volume business, and you can carefully blend the two. I mean, I've done that before. Have a high-end custom studio, and yet you do school contracts and sports photography and things like that. And it's a fine line, but people understand the difference between the two companies. What you can't do, but I see photographers trying to do all too often these days, is run a high-end experience, low-priced model. You can't do that for very long. Our average clients, we spend, I mean, we figured it out one time, between the consultation, the shoot, the image preparation, the sales session, the order, putting the orders together, we spend an average of 8 to 10 hours with each client. You can't do that for $200. You can't do that for $100. At least not for very long. But that's what is driving this 2 or 3 year turnaround in the photo industry. People are trying to be all things to all people. So I was just talking to people about that article you wrote, Carrie, about the fact that people were buying less consumer-level cameras these days because their phone's good enough. I thought that was an incredibly insightful article about the way the industry will probably change in the next few years. So people are getting enough quality out of their phone that they're not going to invest in a camera, and therefore I doubt we're going to have people shooting professional gigs very regularly with a phone. So, you know, hang in there, gang. It's going to get better. But again, I'm not sure where you guys lost me, but you can't provide a high-end experience at a low price. You can't do that for very long because it just takes too much time and too much energy to make it work. What's the real problem in the photo industry? You know, everybody's got an answer. Is it cheap equipment? Is it too many photographers? Is it undercutting? Is it client education? I would maintain that there's a little bit of all of those going on, but the big problem with the industry right now is this guy right here. And it's photographers doing it themselves, really. Here's the thing. How did all this start? It's easier to provide. I mean, granted, when I took the time off for the studios and people still wanted me to do work as Silver Lake, it wasn't convenient to do prints. I get it. But if you're trying to be a legitimate business and make a consistent revenue, you have to change the way you do things. It's easier to provide digital than it is to design pricing and products and this, that, and so forth. But again, you're one of a sea of people doing that. You may not have systems in place for ordering and assembling print products, but it's starting to come full circle, guys. We've got clients coming to us that are saying, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you guys don't do the disc thing because I got a disc from another photographer and I've never done anything with it. It's just sitting in my drawer. People are starting to get it. They're starting to seek out full-service studios because they're realizing the downside of a digital product. It's not convenient for some people to handle in-person sales. Therefore, the disc becomes the easy go-to. They don't know how to price themselves correctly. They're not willing to invest the time, money, or energy to learn. Maybe their skills aren't perfected yet. I swear to you, this is no lie. We had somebody come into Silver Lake one time, and they were talking about, oh, they're so glad that they give people a disc because they're really not very good at what they do, and sometimes the photographs are so horrible that they wouldn't want to have to see that client in person again. It's like, oh my gosh, seriously? So it's out there. I've seen it in every capacity. But here's the problem with, if you happen to be a photographer that's in this boat, the business model is broken, you guys. Let me get through this. Here's why. Purchasing all the digitals at a set price, and I don't care whether that price is $25, $50, or $200, $300. All the digitals, and when I say all, I don't mean everything you shot. I mean even as much as 20, 30, or 40 images for a bang, you get them all at this price. You are not going to be allowed to be rewarded for your skills. If you did a really good job on somebody's session, you should be compensated for that. If they want all of them, you should be compensated for that. If you had a bad day and you didn't do well, then that's on you too. And see, no matter how good you get, if I start tomorrow and I'm brand new to photography and I go out there with a $50 disc and you've got a $100 disc, who's to say yours is better than mine? You are selling this intangible product. You're not selling your images, your quality. So I could be making the same money as you tomorrow and I could be a terrible photographer. You need to change. What happens, most speakers are telling people, oh, you got to start selling prints. I'm not saying that, because I've talked to photographers that have been down that road and said, oh, wow, I started selling prints, I lost all my clients, and now I'm back to selling a CD. Nobody's telling everyone how to get from selling the CD or all the digitals on a USB or however you're doing it to a sustainable business model. Here's my solution. Take it for what it is. I think it works. No other businesses operates like this. Restaurants, you can't go into a restaurant and say, oh my gosh, your food is delicious. I'll take everything on the menu. Everything you guys cook today. Could I get that for $100, $200? Nobody operates like that, but photographers seem to. What do you guys consider cheap, kind of grip and grin photography? Like, doesn't take a lot of skills just to set up and bang, bang, bang. Most people ask that question, they'll say event photography or underclass photography. Now let's look at this and think about the digital problem and how much, and I sell digitals, don't get me wrong, I'm not preaching on that, but you'll see how I do it. Let's look at school photography. This is actually an order form for my daughter, my middle school daughter's sports photos, it looks like. So going off this, if we didn't go crazy, just we got like an $18 package, if this person was a portrait photographer and selling the digitals or whatever I wanted at $18, we bought 20 of those, that's $360 if we bought that package 20 times. No digitals included actually on this one. Now, look at this. This is my other daughter's, my high school daughter's school photos. This is a little bit more like what we do, and it provides a better example. Let's take the same thing. Let's take a middle-of-the-road package, 24 bucks. Let's add retouching, because I mean, this is basic retouching too, you guys. $7 for that, for just minor facial blemishes. All of us are replacing skies and doing head swaps and, you know, these major color treatments and so on and so forth. This is base retouching for $7. You want your image on the digital? It's another 17 bucks. School photos, guys. $24 for an average package, $7 for retouching, $17 for the digital. Okay, if this person does that 24 of those at that price, I'm sorry. Add those together, you get 24 plus 7 plus 17 is 48. If this average time spent with each student, I mean, granted, there's setup time. I've been a school photographer, I get it. But the average time spent creating that image was 35 seconds. Okay, times 20 images at this total price to have the digitals and everything from it is 960 bucks. Okay, but how many photographers are out there selling 20 images on a disc for 200 or 50? Or how many we're selling 40 for 300? School photographers are priced out so they're getting 960 for 20 images. Think about that carefully, you guys. Because I know a lot of you are so much more creative and you've got all the talent and skill, but you're not pricing yourself so that you can be rewarded for your talents. Let's see. Let me move to this next one. Photographers nuts. They all figured out after a couple of years that they either quit, change their business model, or just get out. I wish I could find somebody to mow my lawn because they're passionate about it and they just want the experience, and they'll do it for rock bottom prices. It's glamorous to be a photographer, so we get a different kind of people. They enjoy doing it. It's fun. So how do you do this? How do you switch from everything on a disc for X price to a model that actually works? In my opinion, you need to go to a tiered system where you're charging, I don't care what you charge, and it's up to you, but charge per digital. You know, like it's so much for this digital. If you want 5, it's that times 5. If you want 10, it's that times 10. Maybe give them a break at this. Or if they order this amount, throw in something free. But at least then, if you did a great job and they love them all, they are compensating you for the multiple photographs that they're interested in. That's the same slide as with before. And we do, like say, on our digitals, if you can't buy just one, you have to buy 5. And we prefer not to sell them to you. We prefer to give them to you at free if your order hits 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 or 2,500. So structure, like I say, I understand the digital thing, but make sure you're rewarding yourself if you're getting rid of them. Because once they buy all those, I've talked to photographers that are like, I can't sell any large canvas gallery wraps. And I'm like, well, where do people get the digitals? Well, they get them at like $300. And how much is your canvas gallery wrap? Well, it's like 600. Duh. If they can buy your digital, and people know they can get gallery wraps online, why are they going to pay you your markup on a gallery wrap when they've already got what they need to print it themselves? Think smartly. Be smart about how you run your business. Just to be presented to you guys. I mean, if they print at local labs, it's going to look like garbage, not like a pro lab. People that went to school to learn color. My personal belief is that we have a moral obligation as photographers to provide something physical, because the generation that we're at right now, they don't get it. The seniors that we're dealing with, they don't get it. They think, oh, all I really need is my announcements, or all I really need is a cell phone app. These are disposable technologies. In 15 years, their phones aren't going to be around. We're going to be operating on a completely different, I mean, when I was in high school, we didn't even have the internet. So who knows what's going to happen in the next 15 years, but photographs that are printed are there forever. It's a family heirloom. Nobody's ever going to lose that. And I feel as photographers, we have a moral obligation to provide that for our clients. This is the most photograph generation ever, and yet they're losing photographs at a rate that's astonishing. Kids, younger people think about this, they're literally creating images for Snapchat they're putting time and effort into making the right expression, get the right lighting, and it's going to be deleted. It's got a 3-second shelf life. This is affecting their psychology. Photography is disposable, and we need to change the conversation. We need to constantly educate our clients. Selling never starts in the sales room, guys. If you aren't starting to talk about product before you get them in the sales room, you will lose. That's a piece of the puzzle that's missing. If you're not having a consultation with them in advance, or while you're shooting, talking about, oh, this would be great for a wall portrait, this would be great for a wall cluster, this would be awesome in your album. These are things, if you do this properly and talk about product before the shoot and during the shoot, you're not really selling in the sales room, you're just helping them make decisions. If they can't afford you, spend your time on somebody that can. Don't waste your time on somebody else. Digital photography, this is actually funny because this is a local request we had to do boudoir session. Okay, and I told her what our pricing was, and she says, okay, well, I'm a photographer as well, and I really just wanted to pay for a session fee plus the high-res disc to do my own photo book for my husband and anniversary coming up. But $750 is definitely out of my price range. I would want to stick close to $200 as possible. So I don't know if that's doable or not, but you can have someone call me Monday. I know a ton of photographers that are desperate enough they would have been like, oh my gosh, I'll do it. My response to her, I'm confident someone or I would be happy to offer you a session and CD for $200. Honestly, folks that are shopping based on price alone are not typically our client. Those that come to us are typically seeking a level of quality and creativity that they can't find elsewhere. Best of luck in your search. Thanks for checking with us. Guess what? This lady booked, and she spent, I mean, it wasn't a huge order, but she spent $700 or $800. So a lot of it's just education constantly. Workflow, you guys. I'm ripping through this because I'm over time. But oops, that's my last slide. So Think about how much time you're spending playing in Photoshop. I talked about this earlier. Photoshop is the devil. We batch process everything. Well, no, I lied. We work up 6 to 8 of our favorites that are full done. This is what we do. This is our look. This is our style. And then we have a couple of actions that we batch everything else. Because if they don't order it, I don't want to spend the time working on acne, problems with the image or whatever. If they order it, then we go back and fully retouch it. Outsource the retouching, you guys. We've got a company called Rebuku that we work with. They're phenomenal. I send them images, and I often have them back the next day. Fully retouched costs me, it's not much. I don't want to misquote it, but it's like $2 an image or something like that. And especially the guys with heavy acne, done, they can do it. They're the professionals, not I'm good to look at somebody's face like 8 or 10 times in a row, and then I'm done with that person. Don't do all your stuff custom, you guys. Like, come up with templates for the year, maybe new templates for your books or your albums, and then that's what you're selling that year. So it's different from the kids from last year, but you're not reinventing the wheel every time. Miller's design software, Miller's is our lab. I love these guys. They have a design software that when we design an album, and it's a little clunky, it took me a bit to get used to, but when we design an album, we can go back and reopen that album, duplicate that project, and literally drag new photos in the holes that we already have. That's a huge time saver for us on building these books and albums. And if that's not the case, for you guys, Miller's or Rebuku also does a fully designed album for like $30. And that's, in case you guys are writing that down, R-E-B-O-O-K-U, Rebuku. But yeah, I mean, time spent that's effective for you guys is selling and shooting. Time playing in Photoshop and thinking around on social media is something you could pay somebody to do or outsource. This is the end image. We're doing a lot of these this year. The kids are responding to it very well. This is a mix. I told you I don't ever take something totally. This is a mix between what I'm learning from Richard Sturdivant and what I've learned from Dan Freibault. And it's working out marvelously. We shoot knowing that we're going to do these type of composites. The kids love them, and we charge, as far as getting compensated for your time and effort, there's actually a creation fee to do this unless your order hits a certain level. And it's beautiful because at the end we say, oh, it looks like the creation fee was waived on Creative Montage. Would you like to do something like that? And a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm going to save $200, and then they add that to their order. So like I say, think about how you're doing, if you're investing more time than what you're being compensated for, and try and structure your pricing to limit that. And that is the end